Well, welcome to what is probably the weirdest titled chapter in this entire education, but it's aptly titled because, you can have all the best gear, you can have all the best intentions and skill, but if you don't know how to act on set, if you don't know how things work, then you're going to have problems in post and certainly problems on set. Things like, who do you befriend? How do you get the actors to do that on-set ADR for you when they got 800 other things to do? What's the process from going from I'm putting up microphones to hitting the big red button to doing the log? Let's roll. Now, we have to talk about 300, this iconic scene. And the reason we have to is because it's such a beautiful orchestration of dialogue into montage, into sound effects, into all kinds of other things. And then, of course, this is cinema sound at the end.
And if those philosophers and boy lovers have found that kind of nerve, then...
We must be diplomatic.
And, of course, Spartans have their reputation to consider.
Choose your next words carefully, Leonidas. They may be your last as king.
If you notice carefully, the messenger's voice has added a little chorus to it to make it sound a little more ominous.
Have their reputation to consider.
Choose your next words carefully, Leonidas. They may be your last as king.
Beautiful waving wheat sounds, just accenting everything subtly.
And water.
Madman. You're a madman.
Earth and water. But you'll find plenty of both down there.
No man, Persian or Greek, no man threatens a messenger.
You bring the crowns and heads of conquered kings to my city steps. You insult my queen. You threaten my people with slavery and death. Oh, I've chosen my words carefully, Persian. Perhaps you should have done the same.
This is blasphemy. This is madness.
And then as that last guy falls down into this pit, listen to what they do with his voice and with the reverb. How they bring him in close and then he falls at the last. Not this guy, the last guy.
Madness. This is Sparta!
It's such a great scene for just using all kinds of reverb and effects to heighten the drama of this scene. Of course, when we saw this in the theater, we were all laughing, but that's just because it's so doggone cool. In order to make sure that you get all the audio that was on set into your recorder, every take, every scene, every time, here's my recommended process for recording that you can follow or not. I just recommend you do. Before you break out your microphones or anything else, and after you've tested all your equipment to make sure that it all works, you want to do your routing. You want to make sure that if you've got any secondary recorders, that they're all plugged in, that they're all your cables to your recorders and any other timecode devices are plugged in first. Then place your microphones, whether you're putting microphones on talent or you're placing them somewhere on set or recorders or whatever that is. Place all of your microphones. Now, if you have lavs on talent, obviously run those little cables to the transmitters. But other than that, just microphone placement. Then, and only then, do you run power to various microphones. Like if you're running something that needs a special kind of connection, not just phantom, or any other kind of special power, run the power, run the audio cables, see if you can get the audio cables to be perpendicular to your power cables, especially light power, like big lights or whatever, run that as audio cables as perpendicular to them as you can. And then power on your gear, get some good levels. Now that you've got your microphones connected, power's run, good levels, you've done your sound check, now you're gonna wait. You're gonna wait for lighting and camera and actors and directors to do all the things that they're gonna do. And this is not the time for you to return phone calls. It might be the time for you to read a magazine, certainly a good time for you to build connections with people on set, but don't be that sound guy who's off on a phone and they're like, where's the sound guy? And you're over here, right? Don't be that guy, because people go crazy when audio's not working. Don't be the guy that they're going, oh, he's on the phone, that's why we're waiting around, because something might happen like roll camera and you're 50 feet away from your audio recorder. Return phone calls on a break or at lunch. Then if you have a recorder that'll allow you to make file names, ideally for the help and the ease of the editors, make file names that correspond with slate numbers. And then after that, it's roll sounds, action, you take the take, and then you cut. Just in time for you to make a log. Ain't nobody gonna remember what was recorded on in post, and your editor's gonna come and nuke your dog. So make that paper log or a digital log, doesn't matter. Write down what the microphones were that were used so that they can match them in ADR and post if they need to do that. Do yourself a favor, do post a favor, make that log. And then you gotta do the thing that nobody likes, and that's room tone. Everybody's gotta be super quiet for 30 seconds and the whole crew goes crazy, but they resist it because they know they has to be done. Otherwise, the post-production supervisor nukes everybody's dog. So you gotta do it unless it's a super noisy room. Then, if you're smart, you really blow people away and you do the impulse response and you clap your hands, or you get somebody with big meaty hands to do the hand clapping. And then they're like, what was that? And you're like, just audio stuff. But you know that what you've done is save post-production hours and hours of trying to fiddle around with reverbs. They just drop in the impulse response and they can cure any noisy room stuff like reflection, or if they're doing ADR, they can create a reverb out of that impulse response to equally and evenly match the room that you were in. Then, last but not least, because you've made friends with the AD and the script supervisor and the actors, you take them aside while they're relighting or whatever it is they're doing, and you do your ADR with them in their trailer or another, quiet place, and you do it wild. Now, one other note about impulse responses. What if you're outside? Well, generally we don't do impulse responses outside. There's always a little reverb outside coming from the ground or some other reflective surface. If you've got a giant reflective surface here, like that creates echo or whatever, you want to do that because you'll get that ticka echo. It won't help you get rid of it in post, you're kind of screwed, but it will help the post guys be able to create a reverb that very closely emulates what was happening on set for ADR. Especially if you're in a canyon or something where you can really hear that reverb or echo in the microphone, then you'd want to do one. But otherwise, we don't do impulse responses, and the crew gets a little less nuts. So how do we know what kind of microphones to use, or how do we pre-produce audio? Well, you look at the script. You do what's called a script breakdown. You go through every scene, every shot, every breakdown, and you go, how many actors are here? What are they doing? What kind of action are they doing? Because if it's like, wow, they are on this platform and then they all jump into the water, you probably don't want to put your regular lavalier microphones that are, kind of sensitive to water on them. You want to find some special mics. Or are they going to be pounding on each other? Is there going to be squibs going off on top of them and, high volume, high impact explosives around? All these things you need to know. I know it still happens on independent productions. It can. You need to know this stuff because you have to plan what kind of microphones, what kind of pad, what kind of recorders. All of these things need to come into play. And we do it by just literally breaking down the script. And here's a script example where you can see microphones that were used and how many actors and do we want a boom or whatever. All that stuff can be on the script, and that way you show up with everything you need. and always plan for the unexpected. You know, my firearms instructor always says, plan for the worst, it'll never happen, and then you'll be prepared for everything else. Let that be you. Now, we're talking about levels. I'm just talking about dialogue levels. Generally, you want to keep your dialogue a mean in the average around -10. And some of you are like, man, that's really loud. Well, okay, you can fool around with it, but typically people don't have a giant dynamic range when they're talking like I am. Now, if somebody goes from super quiet to screaming, obviously you need to bring it down if it's super, super transient, super, super dynamic. But we want to push the volume up as high as we can. I mean, there's just tons of noise that's going to ruin a take if they start talking really quietly and you had it down at -20 or some nonsense like this. So, I say be courageous. It's way easier to take out distortion now with tools like iZotope RX than it is to try to just use a compressor or a limiter. Or even worse, try to get dialogue out of a noise floor. That's the noise, you recorded it too low. That's actually possible, but it's harder to do than taking care of distortion. I know, it's backwards. It never used to be that way, but it is now. -10 is your average. Check it out. We've already talked a little bit about sending audio to camera. You just want to be careful that when you send something to camera, two things are in place. One, you're not overloading your output from your mixer or whatever that is. And two, you're not overloading the input on the camera. I know it seems like, well, duh, but when you're on set and things are happening and people are freaking out because they're under the gun and you're the one holding them up in the audio department, sometimes things don't occur to you. So if the camera has some kind of mic trim, you want to adjust that first if something's distorting, if something sounds weird. Adjust that first. Get that down. If it's still distorting, chances are you're overloading your own output. Take a look at your output LEDs or whatever meters you've got there and make sure those are not going over. So deal with that. And then you can also have same problems with wireless. If you're sending wireless to the camera, it's probably even more susceptible to overload the transmitter. Very easy to do because the transmitter actually has, well, in my experience, less bandwidth to get higher volumes out than just a straight cable. Same thing on the receiver end if it's going to the camera on the receiver. Check out that. I know with the Rode FMK, you've got 3 different settings, right? On the receiver, you've got different sensitivities. Experiment with both the transmitter and the receiver to figure out what your best signal to noise ratio is. And sometimes you need to record with multiple recorders. Now, obviously, you have to connect them with time code. So one's a slave to the other one. That's an obvious connection to make. Otherwise, they just kind of go off wild and good luck syncing them. But you also may want to run reference audio from one recorder, the master, if you will, to the slave. Do that with as short a cable as you can. And ideally, it's a balanced cable, not some little TRS thing or whatever, right? If you're running an R88, you've got 8 outputs out of that thing. Just run one dedicated out. If you're running an F8, you've only got 2 outputs, so you got to be very careful. One probably needs to be mono and go to the camera, and the other one to the other recorder. Now, hear me. I am not suggesting that you mix your stuff down to mono. What I am saying is the camera is only going to have one channel that you need to run to it. That's the reference, yes? The reference, of course. So that can be mono. That's no problem. It doesn't matter if there's phase issues or weirdness in that. That can be there. The only time that running mono mix of your recorders to the camera is a problem is if there is a significant delay between microphones. So if you've got one microphone that's 100 feet away from some other microphone and they're both picking up the same subject, there's going to be a significant delay, and Pluralize or Premiere is not going to be able to figure out which is which. So you need to mute one of those channels in your routing, in your little F8 or your RDA, however you want to do that. So only one of those, ideally the correct one, goes to camera for reference. Otherwise, it's okay to mono everything to camera. Don't mono it in your recorder. Keep those discrete tracks. And lastly, you may need to use something like this, some kind of splitter or a mult. A mult is something that actually takes one channel and makes it go out to multiple things. You can get them at Radio Shack. Ideally, you want something that is a hardwire box like this, not just a little cable-looking thing, for reasons of impedance, which is not a disease that you get from a toilet seat. It's just something that you get when you run signal down a cable. So ideally this, if you can't afford it, the little splitter things are okay too, but just know you're gonna get a little extra noise and all of that. So that's a lot to deal with, but just use common sense. And you're like, well, wait a minute, none of this has been common sense. But go back and review this section. Most of this you're not gonna have to do because most of the time you're not gonna wanna run more than 3 or 4 or 5 channels, and that should be okay. When you're doing your logging, I get this all the time. They're like, oh, okay, so it's shot Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel, India, right? No. No I's in shot numbers. No O's in shot numbers. Shot letters, setup letters, whatever you want to call them. I's look too much like ones. O's look too much like zeros. Way too confusing. So, it goes from hotel to Juliet, right? It goes from November to Papa. So don't feel like don't act like a newbie. You may feel like a newbie. Don't act like a newbie. Go, what isn't that? Oh, no, don't do it. Most people think they know what the primary job of a boom operator is. They think it's to keep the microphone out of the shot, and they're right. That's a pretty important job. Maybe even more important than getting good audio. But the second job of a boom operator, nobody knows. And if you could take a guess, you'd probably say, oh, get good audio. No. Memorize the script. You got to memorize the scene. Why? Well, because a boom operator has a very narrow hypercardioid microphone on a pole. And they're having to sometimes go back and forth between actors. And if they don't know what the blocking is or when to point that microphone, they're going to get, and then I was talking and then I was done. The other person was talking and then they're done. It just doesn't quite get there in time if they're using a good microphone. So when we're on a break between takes and the director's giving notes to the actors, where do you think the boom operator ought to be? My guess, my opinion, right there with them, listening to where the new blocking is going to be. And then on rehearsals, that boom operator is there. And that's how you keep getting employed as a boom operator. So once you're all set and everybody knows what they're doing and you got the blocking down, it could be hours before you're ready to roll sound. So there's some things you can do in the meantime to not only help pass the time, but help move things forward for yourself in the world of career. Make friends. In every career, Hollywood or film industry or, making underwater basket weaving, it doesn't matter the career. If you don't make friends, you don't get work. Everything in work is relationship oriented. And you're on set, you're in a little prison with all these excited filmmaker type people and all their various jobs. Make friends. My favorite audio recordist in the world, Coleman Clark, who does incredible work. He's the most personable, fun-loving, giant laugh guy, and everybody loves him. He's probably the only audio guy I've ever known that everybody on set loves him instead of hates the audio guy. What a great gift. Practice that in between takes. Then if making friends kind of runs out or everybody's off at lunch, check your gear. Check it again. Nobody wants audio to go down, and when they do, they go crazy. So if your gear never goes down, everybody's happy. And the happiest audio person is the forgotten audio person, because audio never has a problem and people don't even realize it's there. So if you're sure your gear is working and you've made friends with everybody on set and they all love you, then and only then should you try to work on getting more work or dealing with your other productions. And like I said before, if you've just mic'd everybody up and everything's working, that's not the time to go check work, because they could they say, roll sound and you're on the phone. Totally uncool. But go to the AD and ask, when do you think we're gonna roll? And if he says something like 15 minutes, since on set we add 15 minutes to every time index we get, that's not the time. But if they say something like 45 minutes or more, probably okay. And when you call somebody, you say, hey man, I'm on set, I just had a break, what's going on? They get excited. They think you're more value because you're working on set. Even if you're not getting paid, don't tell them. Doesn't matter. You're on set, man. Awesome. Try it. Then it's roll sound. Let's make a movie. And there's a bunch of things that have to happen in order for roll sound to work. And people go crazy. And maybe you, as a filmmaker, have heard or yelled out roll sound and nothing happens for 5 or 6 seconds. Like, what are they doing over there? Just fooling around or taking a drink, or what are they doing? And maybe you think that they're getting room tone. Well, no, that happens after the scene is shot, right? So what are they doing? Well, just imagine being an editor and you've got 1,000 audio tracks that have been taken over the course of several days. How will you know which one goes with what? Ideally, the sound person typed in the slate numbers on the files or metadata, but what if they didn't? You got no reference because you can't see in an audio file what's on the slate. That's right, they're slating. You have to sit there and say, this is, Ernie Rabinowitz documentary, scene 45, take 3, whatever that is. If you don't slate, your editor's gonna come over and nuke your dog. So let's take a look at a couple of devices so you can see how to slate, because they're not exactly intuitive on any device, really. So the yell roll sound, you hit the record button, and then depending on your recorder, you hit the slate button. But if your recorder doesn't have a slate button, like an H6, nothing wrong with not having a slate button, but it does require you to have some kind of a microphone that you can use to speak into. And what I do, it's pretty simple on an H6 or any recorder like this that you're using. Just use the built-in attached microphone. Granted, it's 2 channels, but who cares, man? Audio doesn't take up much space, even at full resolution. And you just hit record, and you just say, Ernie Rabinowitz documentary, scene 35, take 1A, or scene 35, scene, A, whatever, take 2, take 3, whatever. Now it's in the file and synced with the rest of the channels, and they'll be in the same folders, depending on your recorder. And then your editor is very happy because they know, oh, that's there. Now in your log, ideally, you would say this file is this take, but sometimes we don't have that kind of time. So for the H6, it doesn't have a slate special built-in microphone or activator. You just speak into this and it's almost as good. So this is the Zoom F8. It's 8 channels in. It's an amazing little recorder. A lot of you have them. It's super, super small, obviously. Pretty cool. It has a microphone built in and it has a slate button. So it's a 2-way switch. If you want to create just like tones, you can hit this momentarily. You can see it's sending tones. There you go. If you want it to stay on, just hold it and release, and it'll stay on. Now notice that it's going to tracks that are not armed as well. And then when you want to turn it off, just click it again. Now to make your voice happen, you click it to the left, and you can see my voice is being registered here on all channels, which is cool. You don't have to hold it or anything like that. And then when you want to turn it off, you click it to the left again. It also puts a very small little beep in there, and you can change that in the settings to let you know that this is slate. But your editor's gonna know because this microphone doesn't sound that great, and you're gonna be like weird, far away from it or whatever, and the set noise. So, it's just click, you hear the beep, and you're like, this is Ernie Rabinowitz documentary, scene 3A, take 4. Once you're done, sound speed. After action, you really need to listen like a re-recording mixer, like the guy who's gonna be actually mixing this thing. You can't be just kind of dozing off like most re-recordists do, or just kind of falling asleep even completely, which I've seen. Keep your hands on the knobs, keep intently watching levels, because you never know how dynamic someone's gonna be, but listen for noises that which can't be fixed in post, things that are just gonna be a super hassle. And if you're an indie filmmaker, guess who's gonna be fixing those things? Yeah, you. So listen like, will this mix? And if there's a problem, something happens, there's a big noise or a plane or something that, isn't good, you gotta yell audio problem or, audio issue or something like this, and yell it. Because the take's already ruined. It's not like you're gonna ruin it by yelling out. The worst thing to do is to not say anything, and they get to post and they're like, why didn't you say anything? Or they go that night to dailies and they watch it and they're like, this is terrible, this audio is unusable, and then they have to go back. So that's the worst thing. Better to be, super outgoing with your yellings if there's a problem than there is being kind of quiet, because nobody likes that. It's useless. I'm gonna actually say this. You're useless as an audio mixer on set if you don't speak up, because the director sometimes isn't listening, sometimes nobody's listening. but you. And you're the last line of defense when it comes to audio quality. Let's talk about impulse responses, but let's not do it in this room, which is an anechoic chamber where there's no reflection response. Let's try it in a basement. So you have to record room tone. You have to. I know, nobody wants to, and everybody gets mad. Why is it that everybody loses their minds when it's an audio issue, but when it comes to a visual issue, they're all fine with it? Anyway, never mind. You have to record room tone, and the other thing you might want to consider is what's called an impulse response. Now, if you don't know what an impulse response is, it's basically a recording of the room you're in or the set. And if we had unlimited money and unlimited time, what you would do is take a perfectly tuned speaker, set it where the actors are, and then a perfectly tuned microphone and put it right where the actors' mouths would be and send a perfect pulse of pink noise, which is all the frequency of the spectrum, through it, get it recorded, make a recording of it, and then you've got this beautiful recording of the room. Except none of us have that kind of time, and certainly none of us have that kind of money. So what we do is the next best thing. We take a recorder like this Zoom H6 or any recorder, ideally it's stereo, I've got the XY attachment on it, and you put it where the actors' mouths would be, somewhere right around there, and then you clap. Now I know clapping isn't exactly a pink noise burst, but it's a pretty good representation of what the high frequencies of the room are going to do, which is really all you need to recreate accurately to make your brain think, oh, that sounds like the room. Now, I don't mean clapping like this. That's not going to work. Way too high frequency, too high frequency. We want a deeper clap, cup your hands, this kind of thing. So let's check it out. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put on my little headphones here from Extreme Isolation, my EX29s. Red for right. We're going to try this. We're going to set this right about where the actors' heads are. I'm a really tall guy, so it's probably around here. Now, I'm not going to clap right in front of the microphone. It's going to overload it. So we give it about a foot or so. Everybody's quiet, obviously. And you can do this when you're doing the room tone. People will think you're nuts, but let them. They probably need to have a little let-off steam upset. It's been a long day. But at least you get your impulse response in, and the post people will think you are a god. A lot of people ask me, when's the best time to do ADR? And unfortunately, the way most post-production schedules go, it's usually months and months down the road. And the actors have completely forgotten about their performances. And the performance is the most important thing. You can always sync dialogue if it's out of sync or whatever, but that performance, that's what we want to get back, right? And if it's months away, they can't remember. Of course, doing it months away, you've also got scheduling with the actors usually, and sometimes, whatever. The best time to do ADR is on set right after they did it. They do the takes, they get the coverage, and you're like, listen, come with me. You've already made friends with them. Come with me, and you're coming to some place that's quiet, like you're working with Sigourney Weaver. You're like, come listen, let's go back to your trailer. And not like that. The director's gonna be with you, right? Okay, relax. So the director's there. You want the director there because you're gonna ask the director, which take do you think you're gonna use? And you're like, well, Mark, how does he know for sure? How does she know for sure? You don't, but you do the circle takes for sure. And then you ask the director, listen, what other take might you choose from if you had to? Oh, well, take one. Do that take as well. And what you're doing is having the actors read or recite the lines together, looking at each other or whatever works, without overlapping. You don't want them to talk over each other. It kind of defeats the purpose. You record their discrete microphones, so you have the channels, and then you're good, and you take those takes, and you've got like ADR. And you're like, well, Mark, what are they looking at? Each other. Well, how are they syncing? It won't. You're like, well, how does that work? Well, remember, it's always easy to sync, and when we get to the edit and fix section, we're going to show you a secret weapon to sync this stuff together. But syncing isn't your concern. Getting clean audio and getting the performances is, and do it while you're on set. And most actors are getting used to this now. It's becoming kind of an in vogue thing. So check it out. Now, Avengers is like the best that Hollywood has to offer in all kinds of disciplines of sound. I mean, dialogue, piercing, cutting through this huge mix, music, sound effects. It's fantastic. And this scene we're going to see with Black Widow and the Hulk, Music is what makes this so awesome. And of course, just massive ADR.
This is just what Loki wants. We're gonna be okay, listen to me.
You hurt?
This is all ADR.
We're gonna be okay. I swear on my life, I will get you out of this. You will walk away and never ever.
Your life! And all those punches are all sound effects. Music right here. And you don't really notice the music for the rest of the whole cue, but just there, the music just goes, uh-oh, things are not so good, and there's some heart there. And the mixer made just enough of a hole for that music to come through, otherwise just sound effects everywhere. Super awesome. And the music, of course, shows you that it's all bad. And then it's a chase. Modern recorders take all kinds of abuse. 80 times more abuse than the old Nagras we used to use with the reel-to-reels, right? I mean, those were pretty delicate little things. But it doesn't mean you should abuse your recorders. And there's a general startup sequence that I recommend you follow. It goes like this. Recorders these days are super robust. I got the H6 here. I mean, you can run a car over them practically, and they're still gonna work. I just suggest if you want the longevity of your cards and your analog to digital converters and your preamps and microphones and everything else, you go through a specific power-up sequence, just like we do with the rest of the gear on set. Here's what I think. First, connect all cables, and this is with the unit off. Then, make sure all trims are down, and these are little trims, little mic trims. That has nothing to do with cutting hair, getting a trim, and because why would I have any use for that? We make sure these are all the way down. Then connect power. Obviously, if you have a battery-powered unit like this, you're already connected. But if you're trying to get USB power, you need to plug that USB power in first before you power on the unit, because a lot of times those units only recognize that new power once it's off and you start up with it connected. Once the unit's on, then we go through all the settings, make sure the sample rate and the bit rate and compressors and all that stuff are set the way we want them. Then and only then do we turn on the phantom power. That way, with the microphones connected, the power is ramped up nice and slow. And then, and only then, once phantom power is on and everything else, plug in your headphones, make sure your headphone volume is all the way down before you put those things on your ears for, I hope I don't need to explain why. Same with your speakers if you're doing PA. Then and only then plug your speakers or your amplifiers in. And then you bring your little trims up on your microphones and get your sound check and get all that happening so it's sounding good, EQing or whatever you need to do. And then last but not least, do your test recording and playback. I'm going to walk you through sort of a how-to to get through the menus of some various recorders that I think are really, really good and are certainly out in circulation. Let's start with the H6. The H6 comes just on its open menu here with your LEDs. This is, right now I've got an MS mic, the mid-side mic connected, and you can see that they're ganged together, the first two channels. And then you got 3, 4, 5, and 6 channels with knobs and mic pre's above. Now you can gang any two even and odd pairs of channels, like 1 and 2, 3 and 4, by simply holding 2 buttons down and releasing them. You can do that with any of these, and now they are ganged together in stereo if you want. Now let's check out the menu, and I'm going to try to remember to tell you what buttons I'm hitting. There's a menu button on the side, and then an up and down, and a selector does it all together. So here's the menu button. When we do this, we come first to the folders where things are recorded. And if I go into folder 1, you can see where your recordings are, and in folder 2, and they kind of, if you'd like to keep things grouped, if you're organized, which is a lovely thing to be, that's where all those things show up. And when you put your your SD card into your computer. This is how it'll show up in its architecture. The next one down is the input-output page. And here we have low cut. This is where you choose whether or not you want to have the low frequencies rolled off at the H6. So here you can do it, and you can see various frequencies that you can choose. I don't really ever want to go above, 98 if it's especially if I'm doing a male voice. There's certainly frequencies below 98 hertz, between 98 and 80 hertz. So you can have it on or off, and you select it by, I'll go in again by pressing the select button. You select it by just selecting the one you want and pushing in on that selection button. And if I go menu out, I go back, and you can choose the inputs as well in the same fashion. Let me go back out. And then you have compressors and limiters, whether or not you want to have a compressor on one of your channels. You can do that, which I don't really recommend, but you can. And then we have here MS Raw Monitor. And what that is when you have the MS mic on, attached, you can either listen to it in a straight stereo listening, or you can listen to it in that super wide, which is exactly what I recommend that you listen to. Always listening to things in RAW, because that's what makes the MS mic so cool. And then phantom power, whether you want it on or off, you hit select, and then you can choose which channels that you want to have it on or all. Now remember, the phantom power is going to really start draining your battery if you have it on all. You also have a voltage setting, which I never recommend you take off 48 volts. You're just never going to see a microphone attached or anything that's going to require less than 48 volts on set. And then this is like a cool thing. This is the monitor mixer. This is what you're listening to in headphones. And it's it looks very similar to the opening page, but it's a completely different situation. You select by going up and down the channels. And if you'll notice, I'll get here, you have in this case, track 1, which is track 1 and 2, the left and right, the MS mic. You have the pan available. And if I select it, you can see here the center. I can make it go emphasize bias right or bias left. And in this case, center doesn't mean mono. It just means that left is panned all the way left and right is panned all the way right. You also have the overall level if you want to listen to something, almost like pulling down a fader, which is super cool. And then you have individual tracks as you go through the other inputs, 1 through 4, which is awesome. Just for listening, though. It doesn't change what you're recording. And then if you're like the old ways, you can watch VU meters. I just don't recommend you do this at all, but you can, because it's not actually showing you what's really happening. It's showing you an average. And then if you have a line out coming out of the bottom here, you can change that level if it's too much or too little. Go menu back out. And then this is where you can actually store the additional channels from the MS mic on other channels. If you don't want it to be like having the mid go to one side and the side go to another channel, rather mid go to one channel and the side go to the other channel. You can turn that on or off, and then if you want it on or off, you say which channels you want it to go to. I don't think you'll ever need this, but it's cool. Certainly the manual explains it pretty well. So that's this menu. Now here's the most important menu, recording, and we go to record format. Now here it's set to 48 kilohertz 24-bit, which is typically where you're going to want it to be. You can do down to 96 kilohertz if you'd like, but never, ever, ever do I ever want to hear about any of you using 16-bit. No, thank you. And certainly not 441, and none of these MP3 settings. No, thank you very much. Okay. Then you have auto record, which is cool if you're not able to get at it, or you get at your recorder, or you need that to start and stop depending on sound happening. And then pre-record is super dope. It records a couple of seconds all the time. And when you hit record, it actually retains whatever happened a couple seconds beforehand. So if you're not sure you're going to get something and you might miss it for whatever reason, now I wouldn't know why you just wouldn't let your recorder run, but if you needed to, it'll always record a couple of seconds before you hit the record button. It also drains your battery. Backup record is a really cool feature of the H6. Some of you record on 2 channels, the same content, and you'll record one regular and the other one a little less for protection, which is a nice idea. But this will actually do that for you on whatever's attached to the front, And it doesn't take up any more channels. It just shows up as other files on the SD card, which is super awesome. You can change your project name, and then if you want to set markers as you record, then that's good too. Next one, a playback. You can make it loop and tell it where in your files you want it to loop, and then what kind of play mode you want, whether you want it to play all tracks or stop with one or whatever you'd like it to do. I'm menuing back, and the project menu tells you about the information that you've got here. And then you've got a tuner if you like, and a metronome, like if you're a musician and you want to hear clicks before you go in to record. It's pretty cool. And then system, date, backlight, that stuff you pretty obvious, language. Now here's something important, SD card. This will tell you how much space is left on your SD card. Obviously, a lot of space left on this one, like all of it. And then formatting. A lot of times you'll get in from a card that's been maybe in a camera or something else, and you just don't want to ever leave that unformatted. Format the card as soon as you get it from something else. If it's ever a question that it may not have come from another H6 device. And then you can do this performance test to make sure that your card is up to snuff for recording 6 channels at 96 kilohertz, which is pretty cool. Last but not least is the SD card reader. This is what you want to plug in or turn on when you want it to go to a computer. And then also, I'll plus menu again and go back up. Also, you can turn this entire unit into an audio interface, basically a 6-in, 2-out audio interface. And these are also available at startup once you plug a USB cable in. All in all, the H6 is an incredibly useful device. It was my first handy recorder other than an iPhone. The things you have to be careful about are that it's not exactly super small, and it takes a whole hand to carry it, and the preamps on it aren't the cleanest. They're not the quietest. They're pretty noisy. So anything you record with H6, you're going to want to look up in our dialogue cleaning section, volume, and look at how to use RX Batch to take away any of the noise from the preamps on the H6. Its strengths are it's super easy to use, super great, and just you're in and out and you're on your way, and it has great microphones that you can use on your H5, your Q8, anything. Really, really good mics. I just caution you about the VU and peak meter settings. I mean, they're fun to have nostalgic VU meters on your recorder, but it's just not very useful in modern recording. Always have them set to that peak meter setting. Whenever you're doing a recording, whether you're in the field or you're on set, just make sure you have enough dead time, enough dead air for room tone, but also so that you can learn RX what it needs to take out noise. That's a Texas way of saying so that you can have enough space in noise in your recording to hit the learn button in RX and it'll get rid of the noise. We'll show you how to do that in the dialogue cleanup section. But whether it's in the front or in the back, it doesn't matter. You only need about 5 seconds. So if you're doing room tone anyway, you'll have plenty of time. But when you're out in the field doing sound effects, we don't do room tone. Just make sure you've got that dead space so that you can take it out if you want later. And let's talk about ambiances for just a second. We're gonna go through all of the attachments that you can put on the front of an H6 and see how they do, see what they sound like in the wonderful world of ambiances and just me talking and snapping my fingers around them. So right here, we're gonna flip over to these mics. This is the XY. It's a stereo pair. If I talk in front of it like this, it gets really, really mono. It's very, very nice. Has a lot of high frequencies to it. Left, center, right, and all the way around. It's great. And then it's also excellent, like I said, for ambiances. If you take a listen, you can hear the traffic a half mile away, birds. And if I step out of the way, very, very sensitive to my footsteps on this gravel. And this ant that's going up my leg. Awesome. Good microphone. We're back here at Soul 7 Mix and Post, which is the perfect place to demonstrate the H6 MS microphone. And you're like, Mark, we were just in the Texas Outback. Why do we have to be back in Los Angeles? Well, because in the Texas Outback, there's a lot of noise. And this is the best soundproof place to show you why MS is way wider than XY or any other kind of stereo microphone situation. We're recording everything into the H6. You can see by these cool red lights. But what's MS? Okay, MS is two microphones like XY, except instead of pointing, left and right, trying to emulate a head, how you would hear, it's one pointed forward and one pointed left-right in a figure 8 position out of phase with the center or mid microphone. Mark, this is crazy. Why do I care? You don't, until you put them back together in Adobe Audition, and I show you how to decode them in a moment, and you get the most incredible stereo field you've ever heard. So check it out. Right now we're on the H6. I'm in the mid microphone. Here it is center. And when I go right, it's crazy super right. And when I go left, it's super awesome left. It's the most amazing stereophonic field, and for ambiances and sound effects, I find it superior. Now, if you don't decode this, it's going to sound really weird. The mid's going to be panned left, and the sides are both going to be panned right. It's not so cool. You have to decode it. Let me show you how. All right, decoding MS microphones. It's pretty awesome what MS microphones can do. And it's a really old technology. It's been around since the 30s. But just because you've recorded it, and that's great, doesn't mean that you get it to play it back. And I'll show you what I mean. We're back in Audition. I'm just going to make a multi-track session. Yes, please. We'll just save it real simple. What you've seen before. I actually have the audio file that we recorded from the H6 with the MS microphone. I'm going to drag it in here on a stereo track. Here it is. Check it out. This is super right. And you can hear my here and plosives. It's a condenser, so it's very susceptible. Right, middle, left. Now, right there, you probably noticed that when I said right, middle, left, it didn't exactly pan that way. Right, middle, left. It kind of goes all over the place, right? Well, that reasoning is because we've taken basically 3 channels, the equivalent of 3 channels, mashed them into 2. And what we have is on one channel, we have the mid microphone, and usually that's left. And then on the right channel, you've got the figure 8 microphone, which would be the side. And together, if I go left, it'll show up on the right. If I go right, it'll also show up on the right. And if I go middle, it'll show up on the left. So it doesn't really make for a very good stereo field if you just take an MS microphone file and then just throw it in there, and it just doesn't work. Here and plosives. It's a condenser, so it's very susceptible. Right, middle, left. See, you can see when I say middle, you see how much louder the left is. Middle, left, middle, right. Okay, so what do we do here? Well, you can buy or get one of these cool MS decoder plugins that does everything that I'm about to show you how to do for yourself. And usually they have plenty of workability, and that's super cool. But what I'm going to show you how to do, you can do anywhere in any digital audio workstation, and it's super dope. The first thing we need to do is split this stereo interleaved file into 2 mono files. Now, every digital audio workstation has its own way of doing that. In Audition, we'll double click. Actually, I tell you what, let's select first the bit we want. We're just going to use this bit right here. So if I come here, we're just going to go on, actually here, dead in the middle. Now I'm going to go right. Check it out. This is super right. We're just going to take this. I'm going to hit double click, and then it gives me my selection. If I go here to edit, it'll say extract channels to mono files. And we want to do that. Now watch what happens over here. I have the same file name, left and right, with a little asterisks, which means it hasn't been saved. I'm going to go back. I'm going to create 3 mono tracks. Hello. 2, 3. And they're mono because they have the one little LED looking thing. And I'm going to take left, and I'm going to drag it here, and right, and I'm going to drag it here. You can see it's pretty much the same thing, just a little bit expanded. All right, we're going to mute this one. The figure 8 microphone that creates the side left and right is out of phase with the mid microphone. We also want to be able to take that and use it to our maximum advantage stereophonically. What I'm going to do is copy the right channel without doing that. I'm going to copy it straight down here. Oh, you know what? Let's just put all these at the beginning. I'm not at the beginning, which is why this seems so bizarre. Let's just, so everybody's sample accurately in sync. Fantastic. You right now. So if I come here, we're just going to go on the... Now check out what happens. This is right now, everything is in mono. Okay. Here's the mid. You right now. So if I come here, we're just going to go on the H6MS right now. So I'm dead in the middle. Now I'm going to go right. Check it out. This is super right. And you can hear my here and see how it dies away. Now let's listen to the same thing, but with the mid. I mean, it's the side microphones. You right now. So if I come here, we're just going to go on the H6MS right now. So I'm dead in the middle. Now I'm going to go right. Check it out. This is super right. And you can hear my here and plosives. It's a condenser, so it's very susceptible. Right, middle, left, right? So it always goes away in the center channel. And when it goes to the mid, it's like right, middle, left, because this figure 8 pattern is not focused in the middle. All right, so what we need to do now that we have the mid microphone on here and the side microphone split out is we need to reverse the phase of one of these microphones, one of these channels. And on Audition, that's super easy to do. They have these phase bits up here, reverse phase things, right on the channel, which not every digital audio workstation does, and that's super, super handy. So we're going to call this mid, we're going to call this side left, we're going to call this side right. And so we're just going to flip the phase on the side right, and we're going to solo the two sides. Now, some of you already know what's about to happen. I'm going to hit play. What? Nothing. You know why there's nothing? Because I've flipped the phase and they're canceling each other perfectly. So what we need to do is pan one all the way to the left and the other one all the way to the right. So while we have a super wide response, it's still basically just mono. You're not hearing that panoramic effect. And because of the geniuses who created mid-side microphones, the answer lies in adding the mono mid to this process in phase. And because these are out of phase, this one becomes in phase with this, and this one goes out of phase, and we have this when we add them all together at the same level. You right now. So if I come here, we're just going to go on the H6MS right now. So I'm dead in the middle. Now I'm going to go right. Check it out. This is super right. And you can hear my here and plosives. It's a condenser, so it's very susceptible. Right, middle, left. Any questions? That's super, super wide. And you're like, man, that's crazy voodoo magic audio stuff. And honestly, you're right. It is. I don't fully understand. I know the physics of it, but how, I just want to know how somebody came up with that. That's just such a genius thing. What it allows us now also is to have a further capability to change that panoramic spectrum by moving the mid microphone level up or down, or conversely, changing the side microphone level. But for ease, let's just move the mid for a second and see what that sounds like. You right now. So if I come here, we're just going to go on the H6MS right now. So I'm dead in the middle. Now I'm going to go right. Check it out. This is super right. And you can hear my here and plosives. It's a condenser, so it's very susceptible. Right, middle, left. And you notice that as I move the mid channel either louder or softer than the unity gain, it basically starts pulling down that stereo field. And the thing that's really interesting is if I pull the mid channel all the way out, we know what's going to happen. The entire sound will cancel because these are phase reverse, so you get nothing. And it is the magic of having that middle channel in there that makes all the difference. In fact, let's check this out. Let's just do a mono compatibility test. We're going to go here. We're going to go to stereo expander. We're going to make this mono. Let's just double check. If I mute this, we should get nothing because these are phase flipped. And indeed we do. We get nothing. So if I turn on the mid again. You right now. So if I come here, we're just going to go on the H6MS right now. Beautiful. No phase canceling, no weirdness. It's fantastic. But watch what happens as I pull down this fader. You right now. So if I come here, we're just going to go on
the H6MS right now. So I'm dead in the middle. Now I'm going to go right. Check it out. This is super.
Notice how quiet that is. And if I turn this mono plug-in off,
Right now. So if I come here, we're just going to go on the H6MS right now. So I'm dead in the middle.
On.
I'm going to go right. Check it out. This is super right. And you can hear my here.
Off.
Plosives. It's a condenser. So
notice how horribly not mono compatible that is. That when I turn on the mono summing plug-in, it goes really, really quiet. And when I turn it off, it gets really, really loud. So when we use MS, my strong recommendation is that you leave all three of these at the same level. Don't be messing with them or changing them around, because the more you change their relationship in volume, the more your mix is going to not work on someone's laptop. It'll work great in headphones, but not on a laptop or anywhere on a phone where you're getting some kind of mono playback. So this is mid-side. Let's review. What did I do? I split out the channels to mono, single, left and right. I copied the side microphone channels identically. I flipped the phase of one of those side microphones and panned them both hard left and right. And from there, I play them all back at the same volume, and I recreate that awesome sound of the mid-side microphone. This is the SG-H6 hypercardioid microphone. Just like a shotgun on a boom pole, except it's an attachment to the H6, and it'll record here on the LR buttons, but it's mono. So the file that you get while you're recording looks like it's taking up memory for a stereo file, but when it formats it after you hit stop, it's still a mono file. So let's listen to what this sounds like. Hypercardioids reject sound from the sides and pick up sounds only in a really narrow direct pattern. So if I get right in front of it, it's a beautiful, beautiful, rich sound, and I can back up and back up and back up, and it still sounds amazing. But if I get to the sides, I die. It's completely dead here. And if I snap, that's right in the middle, it's dead here. Dead here, dead here, but it's awesome here. So I'm just going to take this off for a second and show you how sensitive this microphone is to wind. We've got a little mild wind out here now. Got these little straps. We get a little more high end. There's a little more sizzle to it without this dead cat on there. But when the wind kicks up, it's nothing but rumble. This is super mild wind. It's going to pick up here in a second. These little slats reject the sound that's coming from the side. So when it comes here, it rejects it and only takes the sound that's in the middle. So this is your hypercardioid attachment for Zoom. Not so good for ambiances because it's mono. You can use it, but great for dialogue. Now here I'm using the Q8, sort of an H5 with an HD camera. And this is the SSH. It's really weird. It's an MS hypercardioid microphone. Now check this out. It's sort of like an MS microphone, throwing it into a blender with a hypercardioid microphone. And what you get is this amazing sound. So check it out. Here you got that nice, rich hypercardioid pattern. And I can talk way back here and you get that beautiful sound. But I can also talk on the left, and you can hear me from the left in this amazing mid-side sound, and to the right. And I'm over here, but it's also rejecting ambient noise from around the other sides. It's a pretty incredible microphone, and I'm recording it in stereo. I don't know if I'd use this for ADR or for voiceover, but I might if I wanted a really interesting effect. So this is really a mid-side blended with a hypercardioid. Pretty amazing. Try it. Why do we need timecode? In production, we don't. It doesn't really serve us any purpose. We're rolling timecode for no reason. Even if you have multiple cameras, it's not like you're actually syncing them together. They're just shooting independently. For post, we need timecode like water in the desert. And that timecode is what allows us to not only synchronize audio with picture and multiple cameras with picture, but also just know where we are. And sometimes you'll have layer upon layer upon layer of timecode. Sometimes you'll have the on-camera independent timecode that you have to set offsets for. Then you'll have the actual recorder timecode. Then you'll have runtime genlock, for the day, time of day timecode. And then you'll have the actual runtime of the actual finished edit lock, so to speak, lock of the edit that it had. So timecode has multi-levels, multi-layers and multiple uses. What we want to know as filmmakers and audio people is, how does it work for us? Well, look, whatever you do, keep it simple. And my old composition teacher used to say, stupid. KISS. You probably heard that before. When it comes to time code, keep it simple, stupid. So shoot whatever you got to shoot on set, whatever the time codes show up with your camera, whatever shows up in your F8 or your H6 or your whatever you've got there, your RD8, use it. At least things are locked to a certain time base. Then when we get it into post, we can put it into Premiere, we can do pluralize, we can do whatever we want it is to lock it to a common time code that everybody has in post. Now, some of you think, oh, well, you know, as long as I'm the only one working on it in post, then I don't need to do a window burn. Hogwash. Always do a window burn, because you never know if you are going to bring someone else in and they may be in Hackensack, New Jersey, which would be ideally far away from you in this case, unless you're in Hackensack, New Jersey, which is weird. So you got to send them some video. And what happens then? You go, oh, well, just use the QuickTime timer. Come on, man. Give them a break. Do a window burn. Burn it in. Takes a little time to do your renders. I know. I mean, unless you're doing dynamic linking, then it doesn't for all you Adobe people. But keep it simple. Obviously, keep the frame rates the same. Don't get creative with your frame rates. If it was shot at 23976, you're cutting in 23976. Your audition or your DAW timeline is in 23976. All from beginning to end, keep your time code the same. If you've got footage that's coming in that's a different frame rate, I know this is about editing, but I'm just going to say, down convert it, up convert it, whatever convert it so that it's at your time base. Same with audio. If you've got audio files that are 441 kilohertz or 192 kilohertz, but your session's 48, don't try to fool with them. Just convert them to 48, drop them in your timeline so you've got a uniformity all the way around. Keep your time code simple, keep your frame rate simple, everything simple, and life is better. So what does JamSync or GenLock or what does all this stuff mean for time code? It's just handy hocus pocus, but it's important to know the difference between JamSync and GenLock. On set, you've got the camera generating time code to your recorder. Audio recorder is what I mean. And ideally, you want your audio recorder to have the same sync, the same time code, if you will, as the camera does, ideally, like importantly. So it obviously saves you time in post because then you just lock your recorder up with your camera. It's not necessary, but if you do it, it's important to have GenLock, generated time code lock. What that allows you to do, it has a special box somewhere, usually your DP or sometimes your sound recordist has a little time code master sync box. What that does is it's like what we call house sync. And it is the master time code clock that's just running and running and running and running in perfect, ideally super hardcore 23976 or 25 or 24, exactly perfect time code. That time code gets run out to your camera, and the same time code gets run out to your recorder, and that way the camera and the audio recorder are slaved to the GenLock device. Or you can have what's called, it's the same kind of thing, but GenLock, you can set it up so that it's reading time code from the camera, so the camera is the master, and then it regenerates time code for the recorder. Of course, you can also just run time code out of the camera to the recorder. There's some issues with that. I wouldn't recommend you just do that. I would recommend you have a house sync box. The second thing is what will get you into trouble, and a lot of people do. It's set to something like JamSync, whether the box is set to it or the camera or the recorder. JamSync is the minute it receives time code, accurate time code, which takes it 5 or 6 frames, maybe 20 frames, it locks itself up to the time code and then runs free, kind of what's called free reeling. And ideally, and in theory, if the various clocks of the camera and the house sync box and the recorder are really good, then theoretically they would not go out of sync. They would not drift. And every time you jam sync on a new take, it goes, oh, here's a new time code. It kind of catches up or whatever it needs to do in case there's any drift. And then it locks back up and everybody freewheels and we all end in the same time. Well, the problem is no one clock is like another. And if you're shooting a scene that's 5 minutes or you're rolling a series that's 20 minutes, I promise you, you will have what's called drift, as I've mentioned before, and your audio will ever so subtly slip out of sync and you'll get it into post and you'll be like, what the heck happened here? The time codes match up, but it's drifted. Never use jam sync. Never, ever use it. Always use some form of gen lock where the time code is being regenerated, or at the very worst, your camera's just going straight to your recorder. The reason why I don't like going 3.5 millimeter or 1/8 inch into a camera with audio is because manufacturers almost always put the worst electronics at those connection points. There's nothing wrong with the signal in there, especially if it's a TRS with a mono signal. That's a balanced cable, it's a balanced signal, it's gonna be good. But for whatever reason, they put the worst electronics in there and you're gonna have a degraded signal. Always better to connect audio to camera with XLR or Canon cables. They're always robust, the signal's always balanced, and usually those manufacturers put better electronics, better digital to analog or analog to digital conversion devices and better clocks in those cameras that way. So one of the other things you can do, if you want to be nice to your cinematographer, don't run a cable at all. Especially if your actor has a lavalier like I have with the wireless transmitter, put the wireless receiver on the camera. Don't run it to a mixer and then out to the camera. Just plug it right into the camera. Now, if you're gonna do that, don't run the 1/8 inch or 3.5 millimeter to the camera. Go out XLR and go XLR into the camera, right? Get whatever you need on your DSLR so you have that XLR capability. It saves anger on the part of the cinematographer who has to run around with the camera, and the less cables he or she has, the happier they are. So wireless is a great option, but in any case, as often as possible, go XLR balanced. There's a lot that goes into digital recorders these days, even small ones, but nowhere near as much stuff that went into those old analog Nagras where they used to spool tapes. I mean, they were just chock full of pieces of metal and electronics, and we used to cut the tape with razors on blocks. But we still, even with these super simple, efficient digital recorders, want to honor the startup sequence so we don't hurt ourselves and we don't hurt the machines and the recorders. We also want to know the kinds of sounds that are optimum for the microphones that we choose, so that whether we're recording sound effects or recording ambiances, we've made the right choice for in production and in post. And we also need to use time code when it's necessary so that our workflow in production and, of course, in post-production is made easier. We'll see you on set.